So let's pretend I've done a podcast before. So for anyone watching this, because it's going to be available on the audio visual side of things, you're going to have the benefit of seeing our beautiful beards. Otherwise, it will be available on the audio only through maybe a podcast or how I do this. So I would like to welcome fellow FRC MSer and many, many other things that we already talked about. Matt. So Matt, just starting off, like, name, location, what do you do? Where are you from? Let's just get started there.
I'm in Oxnard, California, and when people ask, it's always, "What do you do?"
You're like, ugh.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think I help people move and feel better. So I don't know, man. A wellness coach, movement coach. You know, it's kind of a cluster of a lot of things.
Yes, I think that's one of the things we'll probably get into when we talk about the training side of stuff. I get stumped with the same question, like, "Oh, so you're a personal trainer?" I'm like, yeah, I'm a personal trainer. Whatever connotation that's gonna help you out with. But let me show you what I do rather than let me, explain what I do. And that's hard because obviously the fitness world we live in, when you see personal trainer, you're like, "Oh, so you're also sponsored by Gymshark." I'm like, no, I'm not.
No.
She's not. I will, unless you pay me tons of money, then it's fine. But yeah, so I think the training thing is kind of hard to do, but I think the number one thing is, like, we're here to help people for sure.
Exactly.
So one of the biggest questions I said with my onboarding process with staff or even interns for college, and a lot of college students that I speak to, is I want them to understand their why.
Right.
I'll probably talk about my why here maybe, but definitely on my other episode. But, like, so what is your why? Why do you do the things you do? Why do you spend so much time investing in research and studying and seminars and helping out people?
I mean, my biggest thing is because I want to help people. So, my reasoning behind that is just kind of the life I've lived. I've had some dark areas, been through some crazy stuff, mentally, physically, a lot of battles, and that's had an impact on my body, like I said, mentally and physically, but also through all that, the one thing that got through everything was, I'd just say, movement in general, sports, things like that. So I knew the power behind that, and how it got me out of these places. And that's kind of been my motivation, is to help people, whether or not they have, I think everybody to some small extent has some kind of mental barrier or but regardless, if someone can't move well, that's going to affect the psyche. Make somebody move better, they're going to feel better, so just helping people live better lives, fulfilled, through a easier psychological and physical, is kind of, man, it's so tough. When people ask me the why, but it's just, I mean, simply put, it's to help people, and I know that what we do is huge, right? Quality of life is everything for people. So that's it. Giving people a better quality of life, I think, is my why.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I can think of countless times and dark times I've been through where I played baseball, and I've always gone back to, like, the athletic career and dealing with failure and stuff like that. The aches and pains and injuries. So that was a good, mental thing to use. But yeah, there's nothing better than when you realize, coming into what I do now and how I feel now compared to what I did, I was like, wow, I could have been living so much better. So in that performance side of things, like, I could have been playing baseball better, or maybe, gotten that professional contract, who knows? But
right.
Overlay that to anyone who's just not able to play with their kids so well, or is, like, dealing with a hard time, or battling, like, super hard infectious disease and stuff like that, where, having a little bit more behind that is the army that you want, on your side. That's always going to be better than not, for sure. And there's tons of that going on right now in this whole COVID thing, but that could be a podcast in itself. Good Lord. So we're both involved in the FRS and the functional range systems world. I think that's obviously how we connected and got on here. And it's the whole topic about what we do, what is that kind of stuff. So I'd like to hear from your side, like, how would you describe this FRC, FRS stuff, this training? Is it stretching? Is it yoga? What are we, what do we do?
Yeah, I like that. I think that's the biggest question we get amongst people. When you see the stuff online, it's kind of like, what the hell's going on here? Is it stretching? What the heck is it? It's just these little, yeah, it looks silly. But like when I explain, if I had to explain it to a client, in a way that's really easy to understand, is it's training of the joints, right? And we can look at any movement as the training of joints, but we want to get like more specific. It's end range training, right? So that's usually what I'll tell someone, is we're going to work those end ranges that don't get challenged typically, and that's the things that are going to increase our flexibility, which is what most people's chasing, right? But we're not going to just have flexibility. We're going to have neurological control over that. So it's just strength training like we would, but specifically for those joints and their end ranges.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah. It's always an interesting conversation to have with someone. The majority of my people, I started to do like 6-month reassessment. So not only their movement assessment, but also their goals and things on them.
Right.
Hey, am I doing my job?
Yes.
It's even the results are, like you're an airplane. You are outside. I'm not. That's weird.
I was going to say that got really loud for a second.
That's all right. I can always just re-say that and edit that out. But with those reassessments, right? I talk about not only taking them physically through a reassessment, so I objectively see results, progress, and the ability to make adjustments on my programming side of things, but also so they can see that and they can, audit me, like, hey, this guy I hired to do a job, is he doing his job? But one of the funny things, like on the whole mobility or the weird exercise, I asked, hey, what are the favorite things to do? And it's usually like, I really like doing that weird stretchy stuff that I can't describe but works. I was like, yep, that sums up about right. Like getting that information and feedback from the consumer. It's a confusing concept. It's not novel. Like we know it's not novel, but to the majority of the people, it kind of is. And I feel like it's why it's important to speak simply, like we've talked about. So going off that, have you seen any resistance from clients, coworkers, in a sense? It doesn't have to be every story ever, but a notable one.
Absolutely, man. I think the one of the biggest problems, or the biggest resistance I see, is that a lot of my demographic can be older, and just like any type of like true strength training, which FRC is it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of hard work. But not only is it hard work, it's not the funnest. It's not the flashiest. It's a lot of static isometric type work. And people just don't want to do it, so that'd probably be the biggest thing I get, is that, people just want to do something that's more fun. They'd rather lunge than do some kind of end range training, and so that's the biggest fight. And then as far as like colleagues and stuff, or just people, I think in general that's in our industry, I think people have this misconception that like this is an end all to be all. And there's really no programs that are. When I try to tell people like this program is just, this is more of a thought process, but it's just kind of a missing link. People don't really train end ranges. We gymnasts, martial artists, and these rare people do, but like when it comes within our own industry, nobody's teaching this, no one's coaching this, and no one's prioritizing something that's really important. But it's for whatever reason, no matter how hard I try to come across like the importance of this, people just they don't think it's something that's important. And I think it's the visual more than anything. It doesn't look like it's doing much at times, or you're wasting time sitting there and isometrically contracting, and people just don't even want to try it, and feel it for themselves, because it just doesn't have the appeal, the sex appeal, if I'm being honest.
Oh yeah, no, it's not. On my side, I've had a few people where, you get those level of clients, the ones who are like, you got the pull teeth, and then you got the ones who eventually come across, and then you have the ones that you can say, jump off a bridge and they'll swan dive. And
Right.
get those people to understand the difference between, like, I always, even when I was talking to students again, training and exercise. And I don't know who brought that up. I might have heard that from Hunter or something, where training is like this specific necessary thing to get that specific goal. And exercise is kind of like this garbage ultimately for like moving, sweating. You know, it's this thing that the higher up, the elders, the doctors recommend we do